Hold on, Erlange. We're coming. Hello, everybody. I hope you've had a great week so far. I'm excited tonight to have the conversation about trauma. But before we get started into that, I would ask you to go ahead and log on to, you're already on Facebook, but go ahead and have a couple of watch parties and invite your friends. Go ahead and share. We're going to have a great conversation tonight, and I really want to hear from you all. We are going to you know what I'm trying to do. You know I'm trying to do two things at one time, so you just hold on. We're going to have a great conversation, and I want everybody to be engaged because it's just such an important conversation and just an important topic. So I'm going to give you a few minutes, a few seconds to log on, and while I check and see if it's on the other page for me, but you know how it goes. Okay, there it is. We're gonna work with what we got, and it won't let me have watch parties anymore, so I don't know what that's about. And I think it probably operator error. It's just probably me. Don't know what I'm doing, but we're gonna work with what we got. I give you a few minutes. Go ahead and log on. Oh, and let me share it with Erlange. Let's see, can I do it? Yep, just did. So I hope y'all, like I said, have had a great week so far. It's almost Friday. You know, every time I come on, it's close to the weekend. It's really Friday Eve every time I'm on. So you should always look forward to coming on and hanging out with me for an hour. You know, we always go around an hour mark. We may be a little more, a little less. Have I spoken with you since last week did I speak to you last week? Yes, we talked last week. We talked about Ask Me Anything. And so that was a good conversation. And we talked about healing and dealing with our emotions during the holidays. So that was a great conversation. I thank you all for being a part of that. Tonight, I am so excited that we are going to be talking about trauma. And I know some of y'all probably saying, well, I ain't had no trauma. Ain't that happened to me? I'm good. I hadn't been hit by a car. I hadn't been something that you think is just way out. I'm good. I'm good. Well, we're gonna see just how good you are. I am excited to have one of my co-workers on tonight, and I consider her to be an expert on the subject matter. So she's going to be able to answer all of your questions. You just post your questions up there and allow her, and I'm going to read the questions and then she's going to answer. So she can answer all of the questions. Her name is Erlange Elisme. Did I pronounce that right?
Close. It's Erlange Elisme. You have to say it in French.
Oh, well, since I don't speak French, I speak Southern. Erlange Elisme.
And I speak English, so we're good.
We are super excited to have her on tonight. I didn't know that she knew one of my friends that I used to go to church with. She knows her family. She knows her mom and her dad. So I'm excited. I hope Yami gets on so that you can say hello to Yami. But let me give you a little bit of background about Erlange and our work history. And I want to say this because we're talking about such an important topic. And I just want you to know that she is just not somebody off the street that I just pulled in to say, come on and talk. No, she's actually done the work so that she can speak as an expert as it relates to trauma and as it relates to children. She has presented a workshop at workshops called When Trauma Comes to Schools, Strategies for Success, Paradox of Being Gifted, Active Parenting Now, parent effectiveness training, parenting a team, fostering resilience in school-age children, understanding the impact of diversity when treating mental illness, helping families thrive in today's society. She's done a lot of work, as I said, as it relates to children and the ACE study, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Being multicultural sensitive. She's written, one of her publications is Self-Esteem and Child Development. That was produced in the Haitian Women of Miami newsletter, understanding and working with Haitian immigrant families. So she has some experience, and I am excited to have her on tonight. So without further ado, I want to say good evening, and how are you doing?
Good evening. I'm doing fine. I'm doing great, I should say, actually. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Hey, Yami, you're on. I'm so glad you're here. She knows your parents, so you need to act right because she'll report you.
Hey, Yami.
I want to say hey to Sophie and to Linda, Danielle. Thank you all for logging on tonight. First, before we get into trauma, I want to ask you, I ask everybody, how are you navigating this pandemic? How's it going for you?
Well as anybody can.
Uh-huh.
I'm blessed that so far I've been spared, and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just counting my blessings. But
Mm-hmm.
it has been hard for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's so fitting that we're talking about trauma. The pandemic has been traumatic for
Yes.
a lot of people, including
Yes.
children. So yeah,
Yes. Yeah. And how's your son doing?
my son is hanging in there. He has a lot of schoolwork to do. He decided he wanted to stay home, and I allowed him to stay home
Mm-hmm.
and with supervision and everything. But he's doing fine. Thank you
Good.
for asking.
Good. So tonight, y'all, we're talking about transition and trauma and children. And when we say trauma, let me give you a definition. The Cambridge definition says, a dictionary says, it's a severe emotional shock and pain caused by an extremely upsetting experience. So that can be any number of things. And you know what may be trauma to me may not be trauma to you.
Yeah.
uh Erlange, when we say the word trauma, what do you think of when we say trauma?
Well, we are talking generally about psychological trauma when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. And it can be, there can be physical trauma
Mm-hmm.
also.
Mm-hmm.
We want to really talk mostly about the psychological effect of trauma, because I will talk about some what it does to the brain and what
Uh-huh.
it does to children and what it does to our bodies long term. So we'll talk about all that
All
tonight.
right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hush because you're getting ready to go in. I told y'all need to call your friends. Hey, Sherry, how are you? Thank you for being on tonight. You need to call your friends. When we talk about trauma, what are some of the things that can cause trauma, emotional trauma?
Yeah, to go back is that trauma changes the chemistry of the brain. It
Mm-hmm.
changes the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that cause that, and we're just going to talk about some of the things. Child abuse
Mm-hmm.
is one of them. Poverty,
Mm,
one of them. We Racism is one of them.
mm-hmm.
Whether or not you are directly impacted, because you are looking and you see what's happening to others, just
Mm-hmm.
like what happened to George Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
it's really traumatic. Any sort of domestic violence, whether or
Mm-hmm.
not the kid sees it or not, if it's in the family, it's traumatic. Any sort of dysfunction, those
Mm-hmm.
are traumatic to children and to all of us, but
Yeah.
children
Yeah.
especially, and that's what we're talking about, mental trauma.
Also, as you mentioned earlier, pandemic.
The pandemic, of course, yeah.
Yeah. And would you say also maybe the death of a loved one, being bullied or assaulted, all of that stuff can have lasting effects on us?
Yes, absolutely. Bullying, school,
Mm-hmm.
discrimination,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like you are like the other.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so all that can affect you.
Yeah.
Um,
Even you know what I've noticed, and I think sometimes we don't think about it. Kids, as you said, homeless or foster care, or kids that are coming in to a new school, they don't speak the language, they don't know anybody there, and you expect for them to just to function like everything is hunky-dory. It
mhm,
ain't. It's just
mhm.
not.
It-
There are so many things that can cause trauma to us. Would you talk a little bit, you mentioned it earlier, talk a little bit about how trauma affects our brain or children's brains?
the first thing that it does, there is this scientist, psychologist, Dr. Vincott, no, psychiatrist.
Hmm.
He says that trauma stays in your body.
Yeah.
It stays in the body. It changes the brain architecture. And I will explain a little bit about that in a few minutes when we talk about the effects, okay? It changes it. And the fact that you everything about you
Hmm.
has changed. The way you see life, the
Hmm.
way you feel, um it changes, and it's pervasive. It affects
Hmm.
every aspect of
Yeah.
your life. And as I said earlier, it's lifelong. One thing that it does, and I need to talk about the brain, is that it's for kids who have developmental trauma. Our brain should be typically kids who have typical brain function. They have a larger part of cognition, like the
Uh-huh.
cognitive, the prefrontal cortex
Uh-huh.
is intact. It's bigger.
Hmm.
And then you have the social, emotional, and the regulation and the survival brain. But when you are a victim, or when you experience trauma, it flips that. The
Wow.
cognitive brain, the prefrontal cortex, becomes smaller when you are triggered.
Wow. So
And
what is the function? I didn't ask, I pre-asked you this, but do you know right offhand what is the function? What's happening? What's that part of the brain?
well, the prefrontal is where you make decision.
Wow.
That's where you think. That's where you learn. When I'm learning, I'm reading, I'm using my prefrontal
Yeah.
cortex. When
Yeah.
I'm making decisions that are sound, I'm making decisions based on my prefrontal cortex.
Wow.
However, there are times, instead of making a top bottom decisions, I make
Mm-hmm.
bottom top decision. And that's what happens to children. They are making bottom top, or people who have been, not just children, but people who have been exposed to violence, especially
Mm-hmm.
complex trauma. eh, they they come from emotion to
Mm-hmm.
where they're supposed to make sound decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the survival brain, or the amygdala part of the brain is making decision for them.
So is that an example of when a student is always on edge? He's almost like um just looking for, just real tense, not relaxed, just looking for the next thing. He's is almost a flight or
Of, of
fight.
fight, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So there are three. There is fight,
Uh-huh.
okay? You want, because your brain, when your brain is so damaged because of trauma, you are looking to get out, and that is normal. If people understand that this is normal, this is part of our defense mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they want to fight because you just triggered me, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
brings me back to my abuse part. Okay, so there is flight, when
Mm-hmm.
you want to run from the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so the fight, it can be behavioral problem, or it could be a give you a snappy answer.
Mm-hmm.
The flight could be, well, I'm out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or there is freeze,
Mm-hmm.
where you see that person who never reacts, who doesn't have any affect. And a lot of those kids, they say, oh, he's a good kid, but he's not doing anything. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that also is part of what trauma does to the brain and to the body.
I want to say good evening to Eugenia Wingate. She's joining us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you tonight. We're talking about trauma in children. We're talking about transition. And so I'm glad that you all are logging in and hanging on with us tonight. Thank you, Linda, so much for being with us tonight. So have you noticed uh, that sometimes people are labeled, misdiagnosed as being oppositional defiant or attention deficit, and really, in fact, it has to do with the trauma. It's if you deal with the trauma, I think you can all of those other things like hyperactivity and antisocial, all of those things. If you really nail it down to it, sometimes those kids are misdiagnosed because they haven't dealt with the trauma in their life.
Most often time, let me just give you what a study says. A
Okay.
study of 364 abused children in the United States. 58% met criteria for separation anxiety and over anxious disorder. 36% met diagnostic criteria for phobic disorder. 35 for PTSD. As a matter of fact, children who have had extreme encounter with trauma, they seem to have the same behavior, PTSD criteria, than combat veterans.
Wow.
22% of them are diagnosed with ADHD, 22 for oppositional defiant disorder. So yes,
Wow.
a lot of that is trauma based, but
Mm-hmm.
because we don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to
Mm-hmm.
just diagnose it or label it, and without really going and treating what's causing it.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the study that was done with ACE, the ACE study that was done with Kaiser, and what those findings were?
Yes, I don't have all that information with me, but it
Uh-huh.
was
Uh-huh.
done in the 1979, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And they surveyed, they did about, I want to say 400 adults. I don't
Uh-huh.
remember
Uh-huh.
the
Uh-huh.
details of it, but there were middle class,
Mm-hmm.
college educated Anglo people
Mm-hmm.
that had
Mm-hmm.
insurance, so they were like upper
Mm-hmm.
or middle
Mm-hmm.
class people, and they find out that 1 in 6 had at least one ACE. So
Wow.
it is prevalent in women and several racial ethnic minority groups are at higher or greater risk for having experienced 4 or more ACEs. What are the ACEs? ACEs are um, I'm trying to find the word now. Help me out.
Uh, uh, mm, I don't know.
Children experience
Oh,
adverse
okay.
childhood
Yes.
experiences.
Okay. I didn't know where you were going. Okay.
Yeah. So in that group, the first group that they studied, they find out that even those people, 68% of them had at least one
Mm-hmm.
ACE.
Mm-hmm.
So they are saying, if in that group we have that, let's go and look at other groups as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's what the CDC continues to do some work, and they find out that women and other racial ethnic minority groups have experienced at least 4
Wow.
ACEs. So what
Wow.
does ACEs do to you? When you have that, basically it's saying that you were exposed
Yes.
to trauma.
Wow. Wow. So can we talk a little bit? Oh, you all, if you would go ahead. Hey, Janice, I'm glad you're on tonight. If you would go ahead, if you have questions, if you go ahead and type in those questions, and I will ask as we are going along.
Mhm.
Um,
Can I say something about ACE again that I
sure, sure,
forgot
sure,
to mention?
sure.
Uh-huh. ACEs are linked to chronic health
Uh-huh.
problems, mental illness, substance abuse, and adulthood. While they are talking that a lot of people in our communities are dying, people of minority and Hispanic, they find out it's not because we have a gene that makes us die of
Mm-hmm.
COVID or some other illnesses, but it's because of exposure to trauma. And that makes us at
Mm-hmm.
risk for health conditions, mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we become at risk for whatever else is going on. I want to
Wow. Wow.
on
Can
that.
you, hey Lynn, can you remember any of the questions that were from the ACE study that they asked the people? Do you remember any right off the top? I think where
Well,
did you
they
live in a
asked
home
about
with mother?
separation from
Go ahead.
in the family, if there were substance abuse, if anybody was in jail, if there were any mental health.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yes.
all
Yes.
of them, but I think those are some of the questions that they
Right,
asked.
you're right. You're right. They're pretty much yes or no, and it's not that many. But it's a powerful study, and I would encourage you all to go out and Google it, and look how just answering yes to 4 of those, how that impacts your life. It's just amazing how they did this with these people that from Kaiser that has insurance and and the doctor said, you know what? There was a connection somewhere. And then when he did the study, he found that it's an amazing study. There was a question that says, couldn't racism automatically be considered a trauma descendants of enslaved Americans? Janice, we did talk about that a little earlier, that racism is definitely
Yeah,
traumatic.
it,
And then even
yes, it is. And then
go ahead.
we do pass it on too,
Hmm.
because what trauma does, it tags on
Hmm.
your DNA. It
Hmm.
doesn't change it, but it tags on your DNA.
Wow.
And you pass that on, because we're raising kids, if we are not whole, we give them everything that we have.
Yes.
And that brings me to attachment issues too with parents. When you have a
Wow.
baby, your baby is born. If the mother has depression or has some other issues that's going on, we affect the child as well. So
Wow.
this is why they call it developmental, because all of those things happen while they are children.
Wow. 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 That is interesting.
It is.
Didn't think about
I
that.
wish I knew that. I wish
Wow.
I knew that. I would have parented my child differently.
Wow. Somebody said I was going to ask if it is possible for trauma is passed on genetically. Wow. I
Now we don't change the gene, but we just tag it. Okay. It's like when you are, I'm trying to find an example that I can give. When you tag something, that means it becomes more susceptible to it. Okay. It's
wow.
there. But we don't really change. Now, I have to say some good news too, because thanks to neurobiology, we know certain things now that we did not know before. We know that the
Hmm.
brain changes, the brain
Wow.
can be reshaped,
Wow.
we can learn to reattach, we can learn to undo some of the things that have been done to us. And hopefully we'll have a few minutes and we'll talk about some things that
Absolutely. Girl,
yeah.
this your show. This you can take it in any direction you want. But let me ask you, so is it possible for the kid to learn something new without the parent being re-educated?
It doesn't have to be the parent. It has to be a caregiver.
Okay.
It can be a teacher. If
Okay.
but the thing is, it has to be authentic
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if we can help the parent, that will be what we all want. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying even when the parents are not able, other people can do that for that child.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that if the child has one
One,
positive adult,
one
it can
caring
this
adult, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. Somebody said, so you say it goes through the family. Linda, pretty much she says it tags on to your DNA. Somebody says, I'm learning to heal my brain from trauma. Wow.
Awesome. Awesome.
Wow.
And it
Wow.
can be done. That's the beauty of it. It can be done. Now, there are certain things that you need to do, but it can be done.
You want to talk about that? We can go there if you want
Well,
to.
we can talk a little bit about that. One
Okay.
thing that when you are exposed to trauma or you were exposed to trauma, one thing is that you're always tense, you're always anxious,
Mm-hmm.
you are
Mm-hmm.
fearful. A lot of things that you do is done based on fear. What
Mm-hmm.
the scientists are saying now, if you can get to a place where you can feel safe and you can relax, then you can start to heal. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, they talk a lot about mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness, meditation exercises. It's really close to praying, but
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
different in that you are doing some breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I wanted to do one with you guys
Absolutely.
is
Absolutely.
I cannot see anyone. I hope they can see me. But one exercise that is very simple that we can do is the turtle exercise.
Okay, let's do that one.
You sit. You've heard of it?
No, I
Okay.
haven't.
Well, let's do it. Okay.
Okay, let's do it.
You
I'm ready.
sit and your back against the chair, and you sit. And then your feet are on the floor because you need to feel the floor, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
then you lift your shoulders together as high as you can to your ears, right? And then when you get there, you breathe and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you take that breath. It's really hard to count while you're doing it,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
you can and you do it again. You take a deep breath.
Yeah.
You go all the way as far as you can put breath into your lungs.
Uh-huh.
And then you hold it a little bit and then you release slowly.
Wow.
If
Wow.
you do that, you will start feeling, but you have to be consistent
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that. That's something you can do at the office.
Yes.
Nobody
Yes.
needs to know what you're doing.
Right.
Okay, you
Wow.
stress, you know when you stress what happens, and you just say turtle. Okay, and you do that. The other thing also is try to orient yourself, and that one is to look at 5 things I can see in the
Yeah.
room, and I make that mental in that room. I can see light, I can see picture frames, I can see writing, I can see you. So we say 5 things, and then we go down 4 things I can touch, and you try to touch 4 things, and then 3 things I can hear, and then 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. What that does, it's try to put you in a place
Mhm.
where you can feel, see, touch, and you put in all those sensory things in
Mhm.
motion
And it sort of brings you back to the present, to
back to
it
the
sort of
presence. Okay.
grounds you, as they like to say. Yeah.
Yes, that that is the beginning of it.
Yes.
Because what that does, it makes you aware. You become aware who you are, because part of trauma is that you detach from your body sensation.
Yeah.
You do not really feel, you can see things, you can feel things, but sometimes you don't even know how to describe it in your body. So
Yeah.
those are some of the things that you can do. For children,
Uh-huh.
I suggest that parents go for parenting classes
Yeah.
that can help you refocus. Not because we don't know how to parent, but because we need to hear different parents doing different things. Because when we are in group, we are doing better, because even the Bible says two are better than one.
Mhm.
So yeah, so parenting classes help because they give you that information that you need. That can help, especially positive parenting education. Family therapy is another thing that can be done. Parent
Mhm.
child interaction help. And we talk about attachment because um, part of it, when developmental trauma happens, attachment is a problem for those kids. And that's the hardest to heal,
Mhm.
and you need someone that can help you do that. So these are some of the things. Other things we can do is listening to music. Now, I'm not saying anything that we're not doing already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
there is something that I learned. It's allostatic load. Your body or your brain, when your brain is overwhelmed with stuff, with a lot of things, you have allostatic load. And to release that, you need to do things that will help you release it so you can come back and have your
Mhm.
balance. And things you
Wow.
can do is dance. Like you, I don't have any rhythm, but sometimes I go and I dance. I make corny jokes. I don't care if you don't understand it, but I'm going to laugh. Things that will make me feel like, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, so
Mhm.
those are very easy things that we can start. The other thing also that is very important is how we eat. And I think
Mm.
in my community, and I'm from Haiti, and in the African American community, sometimes we don't eat the way we need to eat.
Mhm.
And we eat the fried things, we eat things that are not good for us. I love my rice, right? But if I'm going to eat rice, I need to remember to eat vegetables. I need to
Mm.
remember to eat some fruits. I need to remember that I cannot eat fried food every day. There are days that I need to take something that is not fried, because food is another part of your healing
Yeah.
process.
Wow, wow. So I wanted to list a couple of things that parents may see in their children that may react to trauma. The student, I mean, or the kid may argue a lot, may do some self-harm, may have some low self-worth, unable to trust, unfounded physical ailments.
Mhm.
There may be toileting accidents. They may start wetting the bed again. Poor impulse control, withdrawing into their own world, acting anxious, inattentive, toy destruction, attempt suicide,
Learning
re
disability, learning issues.
yes, reenactment play. So struggling with school or homework, lack of eye contact. So I just want parents to be aware that these things, they may not be being disrespectful. That just may be their way of acting out, because sometimes our kids can't verbally say what they're experiencing. Sometimes they act it out. And it's not that they're being ugly or rude. They just don't know how to say what's going on in their body or in their head.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
And
yes,
that also should be something that if parents are aware of what is going on, to be open to, when you go to school, because a lot of those kids are being labeled with learning
yeah,
disability because we are not preparing them
right.
in a way, because if they are exposed to any type of violence or any type of trauma, as parents we need to try to do the work to
Yes,
to avoid it. And I'm not saying that every kid that is in special ed is necessarily that, but there are
right.
kids, it's because they are triggered and they cannot use their
Hmm.
prefrontal cortex, and they're only using their survival brain. So
Yes.
we need to remember that.
Wow, that's really good. That's really good. How you were talking a little bit earlier about how we respond to our children. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the things that we can do? You did some exercises about what we can do with our children and for ourselves. I think it's real important before we start dealing with our children is that we deal with our own trauma. We we got to get our own selves together first before we start, and one of my favorite saying is put your mask on yourself first
Put
before
your
you can
mask
help.
on first, yeah, because you cannot help anybody until you are whole. You need
Mm-hmm.
to work on yourself. You need to
Right,
take care of yourself. Self-care is important.
right,
It
right,
is
right,
very
right.
important. And it doesn't require a lot of money to do that either.
Right.
Walking in your neighborhood is self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Sleeping is self-care, because if you're
Saying no.
tired, yeah, staying home sometimes is
Mm-hmm.
self-care, because if you are so tired you cannot function,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not helping anybody. You're not even helping your
Right,
job.
right.
So take care. That's the first thing that parents should do. Take care of
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And if you are in a relationship that is abusive, talk to someone,
Mm-hmm.
because so many women are allowing negative people to hurt them and
Mm-hmm.
hurt their children, because when it's done to you, as I said earlier, it's not just you, it's your children as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be careful who is in our surrounding.
Yes, yes, absolutely. There's one question on the floor. It says, what are some ways that parents unintentionally traumatize their children?
Oh my goodness. I'll say what just come to mind. Multiple relationships.
Mhm,
I'm dating. I have a young kid and I'm dating here, I'm dating there, I'm dating. That kid is confused. That's traumatic for a kid. It's not just a value issue, but it's something that can impact the kid, because I'm seeing all those people. Okay. The
mhm,
other thing
mhm,
that we can do without even thinking is what we say.
mhm,
Sometimes we say things that we
mhm,
really do not mean, but it was our survival brain talking.
mhm,
Okay. I know as a parent, I've been, I'm guilty of that sometimes. I say something
mhm,
and I said, why did I say that? Okay.
mhm,
The kid is being snappy and you want to say something too. You
mhm.
are the adult, right?
Yep.
So these are things that we do without even um,
Mhm,
we're not even aware. We have to realize that our fear can control and dominate what we do.
mhm,
Sometimes we allow our fear to just block ways for our kids by
mhm.
giving them so much of that fear instead of living by faith. So that can be traumatic to children as well.
Wow, wow. So we have one tonight who says it's an awesome conversation. I am sorry, I'm going to butcher your name. I know I am. It's
Luchard.
Luchalda.
Luchard. Hey, she's a
Yes.
social worker.
Hey, social worker. Thank you for being
she's
on tonight.
She's my friend, sister, social worker.
Okay, friend, sister, social worker, we're glad to have you. Um, let's talk a little on and give us your questions. She says it's an awesome conversation. I'm glad you joined because this is the trauma guru that we have on tonight. So she's going to answer all of y'all questions while I try to get my papers in line. Some of the things that I was saying that that I thought that we could do is when we're dealing with our kids and we're dealing with trauma, we gotta don't react to the behavior, but we gotta remain calm. We gotta remain calm. And don't take it personal. It's not really about you. It's really about the kid. That what they're dealing with. And we gotta educate and not humiliate. Sometimes, you know what you said earlier, that sometimes we just flip off at the mouth because they flipped off at the mouth, and that's not maybe the best way.
And you know, that happens a lot, especially when we are not taking care of our own business.
Yeah.
Right. If my self-esteem is very low and a kid says something to me, I want to show who the boss is. But you know what? You are the boss when you can remain calm.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So you're the
So
boss when you can remain calm.
yeah, but when you are yelling, and I told my son that once, I said, whoever is yelling loud is not the power, is not the strong person. When you have to speak loud, you're not necessarily the strong person, but the person who speak calmly usually has something very important to say. So
It's important that we're also that we help the kid, try to help the kid to verbalize what they're feeling or verbalize what they're going through. Yami says, really good convo. This pandemic has been really tough for everyone, but we do have to watch how we talk to our children. I'm trying to be aware of this daily. You are the boss when you can remain calm. Really good. Yeah, Yami, this is really good. Really good. And sometimes our children don't have the words to say how they feel. And sometimes we have to help them. We have to I found this chart on of course on Google, and it has, you know, good, bad, and sad, but it also has other words that they could possibly be feeling. You know, they may be feeling unsure, they may be feeling a little queasy. So a lot of different, we have to expand. I think we have to expand our vocabulary to talk about how we're feeling. I think one of the things we need to do, I suggest, is use your discipline, but don't shame them.
Well, discipline is very different from punishment, right? Discipline, the word is from Latin, and it means to shape, to educate, to lead, just like the disciples, right? We're leading, we're teaching, not punishing. So that's the difference that a lot of people don't make. And they hit, they yell, thinking that they bring in kids to shape. You're not. You're shaming them. And as we talked earlier, words can be traumatic. I was having that conversation with my sister yesterday. She didn't give me permission to say it, but she will forgive me. And we're talking about how words hurt.
Oh, okay? My goodness.
So we need to be aware of that. As parents, as friends, as colleagues, words do hurt.
Oh my goodness. So I know everybody didn't get that. I want you to tell me where discipline comes from, the root of it, the origin of it, and tell me what it really means.
Discipline is from the Latin word, and I don't want to say the Latin word because I'm on Facebook Live. I think it's I'm not going to say it, but anyway, but it means to teach.
Discipline means to teach. Oh my goodness. Go ahead.
to teach, to lead. And if you even think about the new programs that schools are talking about, they're talking about SEL, they're talking about what's that
Okay, SEL, tell what SEL is. We're not at school.
social emotional learning.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you are teaching kids how to act. You are
Mm-hmm.
teaching them how to learn. You are teaching, and our role as parents is really to teach,
Mm-hmm.
not to be the boogeyman.
Mm.
I was talking to someone again the other day. We were having a Zoom meeting, and the person has a 2-year-old child, a toddler, and the
Mm.
toddler came to sit on her and would not leave. And the person was very embarrassed. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
why are you embarrassed? The child is doing what he's supposed to do. I'm supposed to be able to take that and say, oh, okay, you're fine. But sometimes
Wow.
because we're embarrassed, we try to shape those kids
Yeah.
into something or make them do something and reject them because we don't want to look like we're not doing our job. Our job is
Yeah. Wow, wow,
to
wow,
lead.
wow, wow. That is powerful. Wow. That okay, well, we can just end this right here because that was good. Discipline equals to teach.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know how we translate that word to mean to beat or to spank. Um, some of the other suggestions that I wrote down is encourage positive self-talk. We've had so many. I've talked to so many students that talk so negatively about themselves. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Nobody likes me. Just a lot of negative stuff. And as you said in the Bible, David had to encourage himself. So sometimes I would encourage people, put those positive affirmations on your mirror in the morning. So as you're brushing your teeth, you can read that positive stuff and start getting that stuff on the inside of you. And erase that negative CD or that tape that you have playing in your head that's saying what those people said about you that's not true.
Mhm. There was a lot that was said about many of us, right? That we know now are not true.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to stop living under those what's the word in English? I can't find it. But we need to start living under, because that's another form of slavery.
Yeah.
That person said something to you and the person was a fool, and you taking it onto you like yours. It's not yours. Give it back to them.
Yes,
Give it back to
yes,
them.
yes,
Anybody who thinks that you will never be anything, give it back to them, because God created you to be light. God created you to be salt.
yes.
You know what those things do? Salt heals. And Haiti, I'm from Haiti, and I have to go back there. We did not have a electricity all the time, right?
Uh-huh,
But what
uh-huh.
we do, we put salt in our meat. And when you put salt in your milk, it doesn't spoil. So
Wow.
God says we are salt, we are light, we are His.
Yes.
So we are more than what people say about us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is true. Somebody said age appropriate behavior. So many times we want our kids to be what their age isn't framed for. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well, we fall into that same thing. What happened is our kids, Black kids especially, when they are in schools, they tend to think of them as older than their stated age.
mm-hmm.
So that's the reason they always want them to behave a certain way. But we espouse that also because we want them to be that perfect. Actually, when we hit them or into shape, we're actually making them misbehave when they are
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else. Because guess what? Developmentally, they're going to be themselves.
Yeah.
They're
Yes.
going to be
Yes. We expect, even for when I think about pre-K and I think about those little kids, you expect for them to go sit all day when I don't think they're ready to sit all day. Or you got to keep, I mean, they don't sit all day at home, so automatically you think that they're just going to go to school and something's going to turn on and they're going to be, it's,
And if they sit all day at home, something is wrong.
yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Oh, that's good. That's good. So one of the things, one other thing I suggested is, or I wrote down is, instead of asking what's wrong with you, ask what happened to you.
What happened? Yes. And that's a question that we offer to teachers sometimes, to ask, because the kid can come and misbehave. They're misbehaving because of something. You remember when I talk about the brain flips,
Mm-hmm.
so let's find out what happened
Yeah, yeah.
and ask them. And sometimes they may not be able to say it right away, but if you are calm and you
Mm,
are kind, because we need to be kind as parents too, they will eventually tell us.
yes, yes. Y'all have any more questions? Come on, y'all. We're winding down. We got like 8 more minutes. I can't believe. See, I told you it goes by so fast. It goes by so fast. Can you recommend any good books or any good readings that or TED Talks that you've experienced, that you found to be very beneficial to you?
um I'm reading now Healing Developmental Trauma by Lawrence Heller,
Mm-hmm.
and Aline Lapierre. It's really good, but it's long. But if you Google developmental trauma, if you go to, I cannot remember the website. I was not ready for that question.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, there are some good books. There is the book by, it's he writes it very well, although it should be an academic book. The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
a very good book by Bessel van der Kolk. He's a psychiatrist, but he writes really beautifully. I like what he writes. Um, and there is a lot of information coming, but I just don't have all of them.
Okay. Some of the resources I found, there is a place where you can go on Google and type in breathing exercises. They have some breathing exercises for
Yes.
you. They have some tips on social emotional activities. Type that in. Google can be your friend.
Yeah.
Type in de-escalation tips. And if you need those, I can get those to you. And one place, that Children's Health Care of Atlanta, they have this place called Strong for the number four
Oh, yeah.
Life. That's a great
They have
resource
some.
if you parent or you deal with children at all. It's called Strong for the number four Life. Um, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, the Learning Brain versus the Survival Brain. The TED Talk by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris is
Oh,
really
yes.
good. I first saw that with Erlange. She let me look at that. She introduced me to her, a phenomenal woman, African American woman who's doing magnificent things. Very, you would enjoy that. I think it's about 15 minutes long, but it's very powerful. Helping traumatized children learn. So there are a lot of resources out there. If you are really interested, if you send me, let me know, I'll send you those resources to you by email. I want to go ahead and see if there are any more questions before we log off. I'm so honored, Erlange, that you were able to come, Erlange, that you were able to come on tonight to share with us. You have given us a wealth of information. Even for the ones that are going to come back later and watch this, I would encourage you to go ahead and put your questions in, or send me an email, or send me something, so that we can get those questions answered for you. This has been a lot of information, a lot of good information. I'm taking away that thing about discipline. I never thought that. I never knew that. Just an amazing conversation tonight. Do we have any final questions as Erlange? Erlange, I would ask you, do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to share at this time?
I'm looking for a book that I recently bought. It's a very small book that you can read to your kids or you can read to yourself. It's Wozzy's brand. Wozzy's brand. And you can find it at Amazon. It's about $6 and something. And it talks about the brand when you flip your lid and so on. It's really a very good book to teach kids.
Now
About
tell me, what's it called again?
Wozzy, like Wozzy, ROISIE brand. Wozzy brand. I can send that to you, and then you can post it later.
Okay, I sure will. So, man, this has been fantastic. Well, thank you all for participating tonight. I really appreciate all of you all being on tonight. I hope it was a help to you. I hope you'll use some of the exercises that she talked about today just to de-stress for yourself. And remember to put the mask on yourself first. Deal with your own traumatic experiences, get healed from that. We didn't even talk about ways to be healed. Oh, dang, I guess you'll have to come back. Or can you talk about it a little bit in 3 minutes?
Well, a lot of it you can do. As I said, I talk about some of the exercises that you can do, but complex trauma, you're going to need someone that is trained in trauma work to help you. Because complex trauma basically is when you have more than one trauma, or when it's a long time, like you've had trauma in your life for a long time. So that complex trauma. So basically, I think I mentioned some earlier: positive parenting education, family therapy, individual therapy, attachment help, where they teach you attachment, alternative for parents, cognitive behavioral therapy. Those are some of the things you do. And then parents should not live in silo. We should have somebody else that we can bounce things off. Even as a single mom, I'm a single mother. I have people that I can call and I'll complain to those people, and then I'll say things to them because I cannot carry the load alone. So
Amen.
that's some of the things we can do.
Amen. Your village is so important. Thank you, Janice. Janice said it was a great talk. Your village is so important. You need a village of those people that you can let your hair down with, and they won't go and tell your business and talk about you. You need those people.
If they tell your business, it's on them. That's not your responsibility, because you cannot control what people do.
That is true. That is
but
absolutely true.
You still need somebody, preferably people that you can trust.
Yes.
But if somebody wants to tell, okay.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, my sister. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight. You all, I will be back next week, I think. I think we have one more for this year, and I think next week is going to be my last one for the year. We have some exciting things coming up in the new year. We're going to be talking to a couple of people that were in prison and they transitioned out, and now they're doing great things. They've written a couple of books. We just have a lot of stuff lined up. We're going to talk a little bit more about cannabis. And I know we want to talk about that. So we have just a lot of things lined up for us next year. So just stay tuned. Hey, and I will see you all next week. You all be safe.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
Be safe out there. Wear your mask. Do your 6 feet apart thing, because I want to see you and not view you. Make sure. Oh, one other thing we're gonna have next year. We're gonna have a lady talking about when she transitioned during Katrina, and how that was for her. So, but anyway, take care of yourself, and I will see you all next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.